Okay, so this is a follow-up because the reception was shitty on the other one, so I'm just gonna go give you the quick version. Shout out to Mike Subtle. He started the conversation with Opposition Reflex. I'm gonna talk about how this continues on even in the decoy work. It doesn't have to stay on the handler side. The decoy can promote this too, and how it helps the dogs through phases 1, 2, and 3. Real quick, again, problem I see, decoys taking dogs to at least phase 2 before the dog is learned to properly set his own grips. That is setting your grip positive. Okay, opposition reflex and setting the grip negative are the same. Like I said before in the previous video, the choking the dog, pushing on the dog, pushing the dog away. I don't believe in holding the collar in. It promotes the dog to pull more. And the problem I see is a lot of dogs going through these phases with the decoy at least holding them in. Where the difference between my grip development program and other decoys is when the dog starts pulling, I just push him out. If you don't want to be there, then get the hell out. I'm sure you got part of that in the other video. I'm just going to go over the 5 points. Phase 1, nothing but opposition reflex. Setting the grip negative. You don't get out of that phase until opposition reflex is not needed anymore. Setting the grip negative is not needed anymore. And the dog is setting his own grips. That's called setting grip positive. It means the dog is proactive. It's proactive, reactive. It means the dog is proactive in his grip. These beginning stages are part of grip development, and later on it influences bite mechanics, because bite mechanics cannot be made, they can only be influenced. So grip developing is the program a decoy will have, or the handler will have for the decoy. Exercises to help set the behavior within the bite for the dog. Once again, opposition reflex, we're trying to create a reflex. We're trying to create the window between where the dog bites, you know, and we're trying to keep the dog from thinking. We just want the dog to constantly dig and shake. Okay, we wanted a reflex. Like I explained before, doctor taps your knee, your leg kicks out. It's a reflex. You don't really think about it. So what we're trying to get is, we're trying to get to a point where the dog is no longer thinking about how he's biting. Phase 1, once the dog is digging on his own, setting his own grips, no more opposition reflex. For that phase, we go to phase 2. Phase 2 is more body contact, conditioning, i.e. rolling, slamming up against the walls, environmental shit, all that stuff. Just another note for phase 1. Phase 1, it's very rare to be out of phase 1 with a young dog. It just doesn't even happen. And also the dog needs to see minimum 3 different decoys having the same technique, promoting the same behaviors, following the same grip development modules, and trying to influence the bite mechanics the same exact way. The dog should be well over double digits, you know, 18-ish. There's a physiological reason for that, you know. Going to phase 2, whatever, the rolling contact, all that other stuff. Dogs first run into this, they're gonna go into defense, maybe start pulling. Yes, they'll hang in there, but we're not trying to promote good bite development. We're not really trying to promote the dog to hold in there. As a decoy who's ran many dogs, that's the first indicator that all I gotta do is repeat what's making him pull, and he's gonna be out of there. That's how you run a dog. And that's why I run a lot of dogs, and I have ran a lot of dogs. So phase 2, we're still, even if we're rolling, even if we're doing all this other stuff with the dog, when the dog starts pulling, we're still promoting opposition reflex if we need it, i.e. choking, pulling with the collar away from. I like to hook my thumb and pull away. Not pulling the dog in, not holding the dog in. If the dog doesn't want to be there, push him off, go back and pray. Opposition reflex is closer to prey than anything, because you're scurrying away, you're getting away, you're pulling away, you're trying to get away. Nobody gets bit in real life and goes, oh, I'm gonna push you in deeper so you can bite the shit out of me. It doesn't work. Not an animal on the face of this planet. When a tiger catches a fucking gazelle, or a lion catches a gazelle, the gazelle never turns back into his mouth and be like, hey, let me just stay here. It doesn't work that way. So this promotes a minuscule type prey. You know, even though we're not jumping up and down and acting crazy and frailing our arms, we have the mechanics, the movement of trying to get away, scurrying prey. Okay, so phase 2, still OR, opposition reflex, still setting grips, wait till it's in the positive. Every time you run into an exercise, like let's say he's fine with rolling, but then he's not okay with grabbing the leg, you work on grabbing the leg and you don't get off of it till the dog is setting his own grip with 3 decoys. Each phase, even if you start at 8 months, I think the longest phase is the first phase. The second phase you probably can get out of once the dog is understanding that him digging wins the whole situation, whatever it is. So once the dog learns that he is to dig and that is the win, well then that's what you work on. You work on the dig and he gets the win, and you can go ahead and expose him to different you know, touching the dog, throwing them, i.e. all that shit. Y'all know what I'm talking about. 3 decoys, I mean, I can recommend 6 months of that, but the dog should be setting his own grips. The third phase, you do enter, there does enter a little bit of pain, it being all fair for the dog. But of course, the first time the dog gets some real pain, they're going to start pulling. And this is where I'm going to go a little bit vague because I have a decent technique. I use opposition reflex, yes I do, and I wait till the dog is setting his grip. Now this is where the skill set of the decoy comes in. This is something you can't teach. Each dog is different, and you're going to have to apply phase 1 and 2 inside of phase 3 accordingly and based on the dog, and that just comes with years of decoying and skill set. Have at it. It's difficult. That's where you start getting into making Terminators, monsters, dragons, unicorns, whatever you guys want to call it. Anyway, so and then yeah, so there's pain involved. And the other part of phase 3 is now you're no longer rewarding the counter. I don't know, that wasn't on the first video, it cut out, so I'm going to go into some detail about rewarding the counter. Phase 1 and 2, we're always rewarding the counter. Phase 2, we start phasing it out a little bit to get ready for phase 3. We don't want to reward the counter so much because we're trying to get the dog to get the idea that instead of relying on the feedback from the decoy, he now needs to bite for himself. We already started him where he is setting his own grip from the opposition grip phase, phase 1. Phase 2, he had some kind of pressure, or what we call pressure, and the only way he got out was opposition reflex. I'm sorry, the only way he got out was proactive setting his grip, proactively setting his grip. That's how he got out of phase 2. In phase 3, we don't necessarily give him so much feedback. So he sets his grip, I change the number. I might let you and react and give you the counter, the reward for the counter, which what's funny is I double up on the reward also reinforcing the bite. The reward, when he does it on his own, it's still opposition reflex. So I'm greedy with the, excuse the noise, I'm greedy with the bite. So I still am creating opposition reflex. After so long, I don't, especially when I'm going against the counters, I don't give him any feedback, and the feedback he can't necessarily rely on. So for instance, the first part of phase 3, the first time he counters, I give him a reward. Are we really gonna have to start this again? Hold on for a second, guys. Okay, great. So the beginning stages of phase 3, I'm going to give up the counter. So he digs, I give him the counter. I'm never, ever, 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 you're never gonna see me, unless it's a dog that really, this is called nursing, good boy. As a decoy, you're not really gonna see me do that. I shouldn't. I usually am a little bit dirtier about it. Still creating opposition reflex. Good boy. I'm still hurting him. Let's say this is his ear. Good boy. If I have to do that. I personally don't like to use the word good boy or hudso or whatever it is for the dog, because I'm never, through all 3 phases, I'm never the dog's friend. So if I'm going to get to phase 3 and don't have him not to have him relying on me, other than body language, you know, that he's winning, the reward comes from me. The reinforcement comes from the handler. Now that slowly permeates to when he starts setting his own grip and working, he's making his own reward. He's setting his own grip and he's making his own reward. I reinforce that reward so there's a handler. The handler does it by saying, good boy, so out of sure if you're me. And the decoy reinforces it by rewarding it by actually giving up to the counter. So he bites, he counters well, but his giving up to the counter should be something still promoting adversity in the bite. So whether it's, oh shit, whatever you want to use, you can go realistic or you can go primal. It doesn't matter. The dog still gets the idea that you're not someone to trust. That's what we're slowly getting to, is we don't want to start you trusting me at all. We definitely don't when we start hurting you and we start going against your counters when your counters no longer mean anything to me. I should already built you where you don't trust me. You're not relying on me. You're relying on yourself. That promotes an independent dog. You know, that's what we want. We want a dog to go in, and we want your grips to be the same whether your handler's there or you're in the building by yourself 150 feet away. And he's putting some serious pressure on you, trying to get your ass off. And of course, naturally in real life, he's gonna pull away. So based on the first stages of phase 1, when the perp or whoever's getting bit is pulling away, which everybody naturally does because they don't have a fucking bite suit on, this dog, without being told, will be setting his own grips if you've done it properly. Promoting the dig, promoting the cadence protocol, whatever, of digging, biting, shaking. One problem I see, and this is why I never start pulling the dog in, is because most times, especially if the dog is defensive about it and you're holding them in, they're just sitting in there with their mouth open, a gaping mouth. They're not hurting anybody. First of all, this is not realistic. It's never going to be applicable to real life. You will never be able to apply it to real life unless you have an extremely strong dog. So even then, in that case, I don't start it in phase 1. I'm not going to do it in phase 3. It never happens. I never hold you in the bite at all. It's not going to happen. You don't want to be there? Get the fuck out. I don't care. Once again, that's still small elements of prey. I'm scurrying prey. I may be 6 foot, 280 pounds, but you start pulling, well then I'm gonna pull away from you. I'm gonna go away from you because I'm gonna build frustration by pulling you out. I'm promoting you setting your own grip, like I did in phase 1 and phase 2. And you're natural, you should be falling back on your first lessons, which is you're gonna win by digging. Now I'm gonna go back to whatever gave you some stress or hurt you, and we're going to progressively build you from there. That's where I agree with the techniques I'm seeing right now on younger dogs. I just don't agree with when they're implemented, like at what phase and what age. But the work itself, minus holding the dog in the bite or making sure he doesn't go for your face, all those things I don't agree with, because if you're worried about a dog coming off and going for your face, then that means that his grip development has not been properly done. His bite mechanics are not as good as they should be. Therefore, you shouldn't even be on phase 2. All dogs go into stress. Eventually, I push everything into defense. They're gonna have to. It's a sink or swim type thing. But I create a buffer with drive, so the dog has something to fall back on. They're old enough to handle the defense also when I push them into defense. They have their own constitution. Their balls have dropped. They have the right levels of testosterone in their bloodstream. They're their own person. And now they have the exercises, or they've been having the exercise to reinforce that they are their own person. They're their own entity, person, whatever, dog. They have to do it on their own. They're their own animal. They have to start creating this on their own, and that is the only time that you will get a real biting dog. Not all dogs make it through all 3 phases. Not every dog does well in phase 2 or 3. That's true. But every dog, no matter the genes or whatever, okay, how good the dog is, whatever. My system is designed to get the maximum out of any type of dog. So where a dog would fail on phase 2, not doing my system, I think, it's my personal belief, in my experience, years of experience, that they would do better or get further into phase 2 if you use my system. Every other system just runs a little bit too fast in my opinion, but as I've said before, you know, it is what it is, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I hope I described my technique. Again, Mike Sull, I said this in the first video, but it was too choppy. You're a bastard. Excellent work, excellent video. I respect your work. I still feel like you gave out too much. But that is my short version of what I said in the first video. Okay. Apply it and see how it works.